There's a temptation to overreact to getting beat 4-1 by one of your biggest playoff rivals. It's a difficult situation to process, particularly when expectations have been raised so much under Wilder. But make no bones about it, last night was a bad performance from the Borough. We were second best all over the park. I think every player in a Borough shirt was probably dominated by their direct opponent in some way, shape or form. We didn't look unified as a group. If we were doing any good work, it was in ones and twos, not in fours and fives. Didn't seem to be a collective belief that we were going to be able to get anything out of the game, and I thought we crumbled under pressure, both in terms of the physical battle, the mental battle. Technically, when we were asked to do stuff on the ball, or we needed to make decisions with a calm head, we shifted the ball too quickly without any real plan, and lost possession repeatedly. I just thought we got dominated all over the pitch, and that's a tough one to take after the run that we've been on. But make no bones about it, Chris Wilder has been a resounding success as a manager for Middlesbrough Football Club so far in his relatively short tenure. What we've done under him, the results that we've had, the progress we've made both in the league and obviously in the FA Cup, and the nights that he's given us already, as well as the type of football he's played, the improvement you've seen in the players, and the buzz that he's brought back to the football club. You can't deny that he's done an excellent job so far. But there are one or two cracks within this group, and great managers manage to paper over the cracks and eventually fill them. But that's what he's got to do for the time being. He's got to paper over the issues somehow, and he's got to make our strengths that much better, because we have got some weaknesses and they were exposed last night. There are three areas I think in this team that we've got issues that need addressing, whether or not they can be addressed now, or whether or not we might need to wait until the summer to address them in terms of both work on the training ground, but more so our recruitment and the work that Kieran Scott is doing with Wilder and his team. It remains to be seen, but those three areas for me are, first of all, central midfield. And that sounds really harsh on Johnny Howson, who has proved me wrong to a large degree in his performances under Wilder. He has been an absolute talisman for the football club, been a great leader. Before Wilder rocked up at the club, I thought that Warnock got some really good performances out of Howson and used him as a utility player. He played really well at right back for long periods of time, played in midfield, played a holding midfielder, played right side of midfield, even played centre half when we were in desperate straits. And I think, we knew that he was a great player, very reliable, and a great influence on the younger players in the group before Wilder turned up. But what Wilder has managed to get out of him, as he's done with other players, is to give him the belief, give him the confidence and the freedom to go and play. And Howson has been superb in possession, in terms of his distribution, in terms of the way he's helped us to get further up the pitch. He drives when space appears in front of him really well, and carries the ball and eats the ground up and gets us up the pitch quickly. And he's just been superb. However, I said to a friend of mine a couple of months ago, my concern was that Howson gets isolated and that he isn't necessarily up there with the very best players in the Championship who play in similar positions in terms of manipulating the ball, slowing the game down, speeding the game up. Just the technical capability to be the heartbeat of the team with the ball. So, and the examples that I gave when I spoke to my friend about that was actually the two players who he was up against last night, in John Fleck and Oliver Norwood. Now, they played a slightly different system, but ultimately those two were dominant in midfield last night, and they were dominant because of the way that they treat the ball, the way they use the ball, the way they distribute it, the angles they make to receive, the speed at which they release the ball, the economy of movement that they have in terms of keeping the ball moving. They're just technically very, very good players, and I think Howson isn't quite at their level. He's also not as young, and on top of that, he gets isolated in the system we play because he's a single pivot. And the amount of times that I've seen this Wilder team with a huge area in the midfield, in the central midfield area, and just Johnny Howson in there, no support in terms of short options. And he doesn't seem to be connected with the other midfielders enough. And last night, one of the reasons why we kept shipping the ball, we kept on rodding it long, we kept on basically sticking out of play because our centre backs were under pressure, was because they didn't have passing options in front of them. And that's a little bit to do with the way Howson shows for the ball, but it's also about the system we play. So it needs some work in there. If you remember a few weeks ago, I can't remember which game it was, but he dropped Tav in at half time to play alongside Howson in a kind of double pivot. And that gave us control of the ball, and it gave us short passing options. Because what generally happens is, as a centre half, if you get your head up and you're looking for a midfielder to take the ball off you, if the opponents press effectively, like Sheffield United did last night, then that first pass into your primary kind of ball carrier there isn't on. But what should then happen is that ball carrier recognises the situation, he empties the space, he peels away and creates space for another player to come in and receive the ball. There's only ever Howson in the central area, and I think that not only made the centre-backs look bad, but made Howson look bad at times last night. He got caught out for the second goal, I think it was, from Morgan, when Morgan Gibbs-White, no, it was the first goal, sorry, when Morgan Gibbs-White dispossessed him and ran at our defence. And yeah, I think Howson is both a massive strength of this team, and his performances against the likes of Tottenham and Manchester United and some of the games that we've been really impressive in as a group in the Championship, he's been our best player. So I'm not saying that Howson, I'm not criticising Howson whatsoever. I'm just saying I don't think he's quite at the level of the very best technicians, and I also think the system exposes him at times. The second issue for me is we're conceding too many goals. I mean, 4 goals last night, of course, we conceded 3 at Barnsley. We haven't kept many clean sheets. And whilst at times I've looked at Dale Fry, Anthony Dijksteel and Paddy McNair and thought, wow, what a fantastic defensive trio, when you look at the stats, they don't lie. And mistakes and individual mistakes are isolated mistakes. Repeated mistakes and repeated scenarios where we conceded multiple goals is a team problem. And I think Wilder and his technical staff need to do some work with those players. It's also partly about the way that Wilder sets the team up. We go in attack and we score goals, and we've been superb in creating chances, particularly down the right-hand side of the pitch. But that happens because we probably take some chances. When we play with 3 at the back, obviously we don't have the solidity of having a back 4 and maybe 1 or 2 holding in front of them. We actually leave Howson in front of three defenders, and obviously if the opponents look to leave 3 or 4 up top, then we will get exposed at times. But we're conceding goals, and a lot of the time we're conceding goals from our own possession, from our own mistakes. When we're up against the ball and if we drop in a little bit deeper and we're looking to protect what we've got, when the opponents have got the ball, they don't look like scoring on us. But what happens is that when we do have the ball, because we're taking a few more risks, and that has resulted in more goals, in success in terms of results. And it's all about that balance. If you spend more time on your defensive compactness, you're going to have less attacking options to open the pitch up. And that's a decision that Wilder's made. But I think he's got to look at it and say, we're conceding too many goals, and what can he do about it? It could just simply be that, our awareness of situations to support players that potentially make those mistakes is better. If someone's 2 yards deeper or two yards further across to cover a teammate who makes a mistake, perhaps these goals don't go in, or at least we don't concede 3s and 4s, which is happening unfortunately at the moment. So I think Dale Fry got exposed last night. His lack of pace is a problem. When Anthony Dijksteel plays, he's got the pace to get around a lot of the time. He certainly gets himself out of the shit numerous times, but Dale Fry hasn't got that luxury, and I thought he got exposed brutally last night, if I'm honest, both in possession. There's the point in the second half when he panicked and smashed the ball back to Lumley and it ended up going out for a corner was a pretty embarrassing passage of play, and it really affects players' confidence. But it's not just those situations, it's from a defensive point of view. He got turned for the late goal that we conceded on Saturday against Luton, and he got turned for one of the goals last night, and he also got they ran off his shoulder and ran at him and exposed him because he isn't the quickest. So I think we've got some challenges there, and they need to do some more work on the training ground there. And that can be done on the training ground. We don't necessarily, I think we've got some good players in there, and I think those 3, I'm not saying we should drop any of them, but we need to improve on the performances. The final area that I think that the team needs a little bit of work on is the left-hand side. Now, Mark Bowler came in last night from a long time out, and I think particularly in the latter stages of Warnock's tenure, I thought he was superb, getting beyond the midfield, getting into attacking areas. And because Neil Taylor's played and he's a tendency to play a little bit narrower, to cut back in onto his right foot, we've kind of lost that ability to get down the left-hand side of the pitch, whereas Jonah on the other side has been obviously one of the best players in the Championship the last 3-4 months. We haven't had the options down the left-hand side, and when you have threat on both flanks, what it means is that the opponents have to obviously disperse their defensive unit to be able to deal with all those challenges. When you know the threat is down the right-hand side, you're going to overload that side and not be so worried when you don't have overlapping kind of wide players on the other side. So I think either Bowler needs to get fitter and more confident, and it was his first game last night. Let's see how he goes. But if he doesn't, then perhaps in the summer we might need to look at a left-sided player who can get beyond, because we don't seem to pose a threat in that part of the pitch. And not only is that something we need to create chances from there, but it also drives the, like I say, the defensive organisation and upsets the defensive organisation of the opponents. So those are the three things that I can see at the moment. Obviously, mindset wasn't great. Our response to difficult moments and pressure last night was really poor. It was poor against Barnsley as well. So there's a bit of a mental challenge there in terms of the way that we deal with situations. If we make one mistake, we tend to make 2 or 3, and going 2 or 3 goals behind away from home in a Championship is you're really fighting an uphill battle. But it's not all doom and gloom. I still think we've got a better than 50% chance of making the playoffs, and I still think that once we get into the playoffs, no one will want to face this Borough side with a manager like Chris Wilder. This guy and his management team and the players who've responded to him have made me feel about supporting Middlesbrough emotions that I haven't felt for years. I feel so much more connected with the football club, so much more motivated, so much happier. So much, the emotions are so much stronger, because he really connects. He connects with me, and he connects with so many Borough fans. And the buzz about the town, the buzz about the Riverside, the buzz about our away following, the buzz about everything to do with Middlesbrough Football Club is all down to that man. So I'm not sat here criticising and saying he's doing a bad job. It was a poor result last night. It was a very poor performance. We got bossed. We got well and truly bossed, and we need a response. And we always get a response after we've had a bad result under Chris Wilder. Millwall on Saturday is massive, but in terms of a sort of a half-term report or whatever you want to call it for Wilder, he's done a superb job so far. He's brought the football club back together. He's brought a feeling to the football club that we're all absolutely buzzing about. Last night, hopefully, was just a bump in the road. There'll be more bumps in the road. I see a football club that's on the up. I see a manager that's taking his team in the right direction. Will we get up this year, or will we need to regroup, give him a full pre-season, give him the benefit of another window with Kieran Scott bringing in hopefully some better players, because we do need better players to complement this squad. The players have been outstanding, but as I've said, I think there's areas that we need to address. I'm very, very optimistic whether success comes this year or next year or even a year after. Chris Wilder is an outstanding manager. Still hold that belief. Still very, very happy to have that man in charge of our football club.